Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 7 of Fabric Learning. Today, we'll be talking about organizing a fabric lakehouse using medallion architecture design. My name is Gogula Aryalingam, Associate VP for Data and AI at Fortude. I'm also a Microsoft MVP. And with me, I have today Anupama Natarajan. Anu?
Thanks, Gogula, and welcome everyone. And I'm Anupama Natarajan. I'm going to be presenting this topic along with Gokula. I'm a Chief Data Officer at Gozil, and we are a data management and analytics company. And I'm a Microsoft MVP for data platform and AI, and also a Microsoft certified trainer.
So before we get started, let's say hi to our moderator, Karen Lopez. She is moderating our live feed and will be taking a lot of your questions. Hi, Karen. Welcome. All right, so let's get into the learning. So the Learn Live series closely follows the Learn Live exercises that you have on Microsoft Learn. The QR code that you see on your screen will take you straight to the um, exercises at the learning content, which you can follow along if you would like to. But we'd also like you to give us some attention and see how we take you through things. There will be a few tidbits that we'll be sharing that is not on the Learn Live content. So let's get started. We would really like it to be a live and interactive session. So Karen over at the live feed will be taking your questions. So please feel free to uh, give in your questions and we'll be happy to answer them.
That's right. And I think this is a live and interactive session, right, Gokula? Like we are live with you. This is not a
Yes,
recorded session.
it's not. Yes. So we are really happy to be doing this. So moving on, Anu, would like to just talk a little bit about the Cloud Skills Challenge?
That's right. There is a cloud skills challenge that is available for Microsoft Fabric, especially if you're thinking about becoming a Fabric analytics engineer. So, what you can do is you can complete the cloud skills challenge, especially for the Fabric's analytics engineer. By completing this, what you get is a 50% discount, and that you will be getting for the DP 600 exam. So, there is a new exam that has been announced for Microsoft Fabric and yeah, by doing this Cloud Skills Challenge, go ahead and get a 50% discount.
And I did try this skills challenge myself, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. How about you, Anu? You get a
That's right.
chance to yeah.
Yes, because that's one thing. Like I get discount as a Microsoft MCT, but also like I love to do the Cloud Skills Challenge. Not only for Fabric, there is also there available for other cloud technologies. Yeah, pretty cool. And I think the way they have organized the content was really great.
And then coming up on February 15th, we do have the exam cram for the exam
That's
that
right.
Anu was just talking about, DP600. So here you'll have a whole bunch of information given to you about taking this exam, including the exam format, how the skills are measured, sample questions, and much more.
And also like don't get like because some people like look at the word beta. So beta in the sense still it is an exam which you can take and you will get certified for that if you score the 700 marks. So make sure that don't miss the exam cram session as Gokula was mentioning, and go ahead and book the DP 600 exam. And all these sessions that you are attending will help you to prepare for DP 600.
That's right. One more thing about beta exams is that you will not see your exam scores right as you
That's right.
complete the test. It usually comes sometime later. And then we'd like to introduce you to the Fabric Career Hub, where you will see a lot about, you will get to know and learn about how you could advance your career in analytics. There is a lot of role guidance, like you can see on the screen right now. Um, what are analytics engineers and uh, what kind of learning will take you through to becoming an analytics engineer, and not just an analytics engineer, but other roles as well, such as data analysts, engineers, and data scientists.
I think that's one of the cool thing about the Microsoft certification because now all the certifications are role based, and especially if you look at it here for DP 600, as Gokula was mentioning. So whether you are a data analyst, whether you are a data engineer or a data scientist, like you can take up the exam and you can get certified in Microsoft Fabric.
Yes, that's right. And if you are confused about what's the difference between, for example, an analytics engineer and a data engineer is, this site will help you, clear out those doubts as well. And then don't forget about the um, Microsoft Fabric Community Conference happening in Las Vegas in March. You can register for this with a $100 discount with the code that you see at the top of your screen.
That's right. And also, they have got some workshops and as well as some sessions. And this is a conference that is dedicated mainly on the fabric topic. So, if you have the opportunity to go to Las Vegas, feel free to do so because I saw all the session topics. Like, yeah, I'm more interested to go, but unfortunately, I have other commitments. But definitely recommend anyone who is looking at learning more about fabric to attend this particular conference.
So with that, let's take a look at the list of Learn Together sessions that we have. We've already gone through 6 of them during the uh, last part of last month and then the beginning of this month. So today we'll be talking about organizing a fabric lakehouse using the medallion architecture design.
That's right.
All of the old content, the ones before this, are all available on YouTube. So if you go to any of these and click on the register button, it will take you directly to YouTube. Anything that has still not happened, you will get to join them and learn like you're doing today. So the learning objectives for this module is number one, to describe the principles of using the medallion architecture in data management, and then to apply the medallion architecture framework within the Microsoft Fabric environment, and then how you could analyze the data stored in the lakehouse using DirectLake from Power BI, and then finally to describe the best practices for ensuring the security and governance of data stored in the medallion architecture.
So I think Gokula, like if someone is new and they don't know anything about medallion architecture, so we will be touching on that, right? So we'll give an introduction about what that architecture is all about.
Yes, we will be. So the
Great.
medallion architecture has been used for quite some time, and Fabric completely supports it. And yes, if you are still new to the medallion architecture, we will be learning about what it is.
Great.
So with that, let's get into the introduction to the session. Um, so in this data-driven era, the need to harness data, the vast and diverse amounts of data that is critical for business success. Right? The Fabric Lakehouse, it blends the data lake and data warehouse functionality and offers an ideal platform to manage and analyze this data that you have. The medallion architecture has become a standard across the industry for lakehouse-based analytics. Um, I mean, before Fabric came into the scene, we used to use the medallion architecture with Azure Synapse in certain places, and also using Databricks. Now, the medallion architecture, it brings structure and efficiency to your lakehouse environment. And in this module, I will guide you through its bronze, silver, and gold layers, ensuring you know how to organize, refine, and curate the data in an effective manner. Now, whether you are a seasoned data engineer or a newcomer to analytics, this module caters to all levels of experience. And there'll be some practical examples and hands-on exercises here. So you should be familiar with the Fabric data lakehouse a little bit and have some basic understanding of SQL and Power BI before you begin. So you can check out the Getting Started with Lakehouse in Microsoft Fabric module uh, to learn a little bit more about what Fabric is if you have still not touched on Fabric. So in this module, we'll explore and build a medallion architecture for a lakehouse, a Fabric lakehouse, and then how to query and report on this data. And finally, we'll describe some best practices for security and governance of your data. Right. So let me hand it over to Anu to take you through the next section of describing the medallion architecture.
Great, thanks, Gogula. And I think we are in the first part, which is trying to understand what medallion architecture is all about. So if you think about data lake houses, especially in Microsoft Fabric, they are built using the Delta Lake format. This Delta Lake format has been there even in Databricks, and also the key advantage of this Delta Lake format is it natively supports your ACID transactions. So whether we talk about atomicity, consistency, isolation, or durability, they are the core, and it is available as part of the Delta Lake format. So let us talk about what medallion architecture is all about. It is basically a data design pattern which we use to organize a lake house. So if you think about it, originally when we used to build data warehouses, right? So we used to say like, okay, we land the data, we stage the data, and we present the data. So landing, staging, presentation layers. So those things like you would have done historically. But when it comes to medallion architecture, here also we talk about layers, but we categorize the layers in terms of bronze, which is basically raw format of the data available in there, silver, which is basically like validated data. And I'll be talking about this in detail in the next coming slides. And also gold is the enriched or data that is really available for reporting purposes. So one of the reason the data has been organized in these layers is mainly because at each and every layer when it goes around from bronze to silver or silver to gold, it is going to represent the high quality of the data. So some people even call this as a multi-hop architecture, where you're moving data between multiple layers as and when you require. So people ask is it mandatory that you need to have all the three layers that we are discussing here, right? The bronze, the silver, or even the gold. When we go through what is the purpose of each one of them, you will understand why we have the three layers, and then based on your use cases, you can mix and match what you really want. But I think pay attention to the next few slides, because where we'll be talking about what is the purpose of each and every layer. So the layered architecture, especially the medallion architecture, what it allows you to do is it will make your data more reliable and consistent as it goes through the different layers. So if you see this particular diagram on the slide, where you are looking at the data sources, where the data comes from variety of sources like files, databases. You have a lot of business applications or SaaS applications, like even real-time data in terms of the sensors and IoT devices and other streaming channels. So all this data, if you're familiar about Fabric, they all end up in what we call it as a one lake. So one lake, if you recollect it, it is basically the one drive for data. So pretty much like how we have got OneDrive as your centralized repository for your files, one lake is similarly a centralized repository for your organization's data. And this is where we are going to implement our medallion architecture. So the one which I talked about, right, like data design pattern. So where we have the data moving across the different layers like the bronze, the silver, and the gold. And once we have got the data organized in these layers, then you can use it for analysis purposes, or you can actually use it for reporting purposes. So what we are going to do next is to look at what is the purpose of each and every layer. So the first layer we are going to look at here is around the bronze layer. So the bronze layer in the medallion architecture is the first layer in the lake house. So in this first layer, what we have got is basically the raw data, or what we call it as an unvalidated data. So we keep the data as we retrieve it from the data sources in its raw state. And you may be wondering why we need that. There are a lot of scenarios where sometimes you have to repopulate your data warehouse. So, Gokula, like, have you encountered scenarios like that? Because one time I was working with a client where the client has populated, they did the design, they did populated their warehouse, but eventually they realized they had to, they missed certain columns in certain tables and they had to repopulate everything for the last 5 years or so. Then only they realized that they didn't have the raw data.
That's right, Anu. I've come across this several times in working with data. So um, in times of old, when in your traditional warehousing,
That's right.
this was almost impossible. You need to have backups of your old source
Data.
data in order to bring those data back. But here with Bronze, you will have all your raw data in one place. So even if you need to clean up or if you need to repopulate your data warehouse, you have all of the data um, in your uh, in your Bronze that you can just bring them up and populate your warehouse. So
That's right.
it
So
has
that,
been quite helpful.
that's right. So that's been a problem historically, and this is why we call this as the bronze layer as a landing zone for all your raw data, irrespective of whether it is structured, semi-structured, or unstructured. Doesn't matter. The data will be stored in its original format, and no changes will be made to the data. Because that's another point, Gokula. Because sometimes when people look at the reports, right, like they may question saying like, where did we get this number? And they don't even believe sometimes when we say, oh no, the original data set came with this number. And having the bronze layer is going to help in those scenarios also, right?
That's very correct. I mean, I've faced several situations of that as well, where you know the data is not trusted
Yeah.
on your warehouse until you prove it. So Bronze once again comes into the rescue to help with that and to have your customer trust your data on the data that you have brought in.
That's right. And any point in time, like you can go back and showcase it to them saying, this is how we
Yeah.
received the data in the original instance. So, in a nutshell, like if you are thinking about implementing a bronze layer, make sure that you're storing the data in its raw format as you receive it from the data sources. And of course, you can append the data incrementally. So you can keep you can keep adding the raw layer, like, or the bronze layer, like your raw data, keep on incrementing that in there. And also, like as I mentioned, irrespective of the data formats, whether it's structured, unstructured, or semi-structured, you can hold that data inside your bronze layer. So moving on from that, like we talked about the bronze layer, and then what we have, the next layer is the silver layer. And this is the layer where I think as a data engineer, of course, in raw, you have a part to play, like where you will be moving the data from the different data sources into the bronze layer. But this is going to be the interesting layer. And I think a lot of people will be more interested in this layer because this is where your validation of your data and refinement or transformation of your data takes place. So whether you are thinking about like validating the data with other reference data, or if you want to put some validation rules to make sure like, okay, this data, I'm expecting the amount to be mandatory, or these columns to be mandatory, you want to remove the null, deduplicate, like a, if you want to detect any duplicated columns. So all these type of things can be addressed in silver layer. So I think silver layer, I would say, Gokula, like it's a layer where everything happens, right? Like a lot of data engineering activities happens there.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, there have been certain customers that I've worked with um, who look to the silver to be like the single source of all of their data.
Yeah,
So what
that's right.
but yeah, so what they expect there to have is all of your bronze data clean and structured and standardized, so that they have one clear view of all of the organizational data. So it can be from your ERP systems, from your CRM, whatever systems that uh, you have, they're all brought into one place, consolidated, sometimes even joined, because you have, for
Yes.
example, some let's say employee information in the the ERP, and part of the employee information in another system. So you may want to merge the employee record, employee data, to have one single consolidated, standardized employee record, right? So Silver is where we do all of these things, but I don't think I know that we can use the Silver for analytics, right?
No, that's right. So even though like we do all our data transformations and validations and all our checks and balances in the silver layer, it enhances the quality of the data. That's for sure. But it's not yet ready from the purpose of like a reporting perspective. So when you want to really do some reporting out of this data, like you need to go through another stage, which is basically what we call it as a gold layer. So the gold layer, or what we call it as an enriched layer, this is the third layer of the lake house. So what we really do in the gold layer is we try and understand the specific business needs in terms of what do they really want from their analytics and reporting perspective. So when we do the goal layer, basically we understand the business needs. We aggregate the data in a particular granularity. For instance, if they want the data to be available in a daily granularity, you can have it, or hourly granularity, or we will also further enrich that data with some additional external information. So for instance, like as Gokula mentioned, like in we do a little bit of enhancement of the data in silver, but I think we will do everything that they require in terms of final enrichment, especially like when they want to when they get into the goal layer. So once the data is actually in the goal stage, basically this is fully like validated, good quality data, and really modeled it for your analytical and reporting purposes. So whether you are doing analytics or data science or ML ops, or whether you are writing your reports in the tool like Power BI, I think this is where you will be taking the data from. So I would say like it's like giving a gold stamp for your data, right, Gokula? Like the gold layer is.
Yes, that's right. Um, I mean, I think the goal layer would also make a good case for an enterprise data warehouse where you have all of your star schemas in one place. Don't you
That's right.
think, Anu? Yeah.
Yes, because when you mention the word trust, right? Because like that is an important factor when it comes to data. Because like what is that data set? Like a lot of people want to report on the same data, right? So they want to make sure like it comes from a single source of the truth, and also like they want to report on good quality validated data. I think if you are thinking about doing that, then gold layer is your way to, is your place to go, where you can connect to your gold layer in the lake house, and you can use that data across multiple reports and analytical needs. Cool. So this is what I was talking about upfront, right? So we talked about these three layers, like bronze for your raw data, silver for your validated and like cleansed data, and then gold is where you are modeling your data and also like aggregating the data based on your business needs. And again, depending on your organization specific use cases, sometimes you may need additional layers also in between, like silver, or in between like silver and gold, or in between bronze and silver. And so have you encountered that type of scenarios, Gokula? Like I have got few examples where I had clients where we had to go in terms of additional layers between bronze and silver.
In my case, we've had multiple need to have a layer just before bronze.
Oh,
That's when
okay.
we bring in streaming data, right? And
Okay.
uh, you have multiple versions of each record coming in on a very regular basis. So, um, what we had for our customer on bronze would be a one-to-one of the source.
So
But
yeah.
since we had multiple versions of records coming in, we did not want to put it into bronze. So what we did was we kept it in a layer before that. We called
Okay.
it landing, and we had an inside joke where we called it the thin layer instead of the raw layer, instead of bronze, where you have multiple versions of each row. We then consolidate that and get the latest version pushed into bronze, so that bronze is one to one with the source. So that's just a it's not a case that you'll find all the time, but for certain customers where you have data that is coming in a streamed manner, that was a good example that we used.
And I think like that's a good thing. And even I had a customer where I had a scenario where they want to have this what we call as before it hits into silver, like they want to have multiple stages of their data. So they had a lot of reference data coming through. They didn't have a single source of reference data. They want to see the data like with man like merged with or validated with the different reference data sets, and they want to see the output of that. So we had to bring in some intermediary stages in between raw data and the bronze and silver basically, and showcase it to the customer. But eventually like they settled upon what is their reference data source is going to be, so that we were able to get rid of the intermediate layers. But there are scenarios, as Gokula mentioned, depending on the use case that you're dealing with, it is okay to bring in some additional layers if there is a need, or otherwise you can stick to this like the bronze, the silver, and the gold, and clearly articulating it to your business users what is the purpose of each and every layer. Because sometimes like uh, I have seen a lot of my customers, like even though you give them the gold layer, right? So they always fall back and say, like, but you have all the other data in silver layer, right? So can you give access to that? And so I had to go back and tell them, if you're not seeing what you want in the gold layer, let us know. We can expose them in the gold layer in the required aggregated format rather than trying to get access to the silver layer.
And Anu, did you have a specific name for your intermediate layer?
And I think we had it as like a stage one and stage two. So that's what we called it as. So because it was like we were thinking about whether to name it, but eventually the customer, like they were okay with saying, now we clearly understand like what's coming through. They settled on a reference data. So we haven't need to go through a stage one or stage two. But that's what initially we had when we were having discussions with the customer, saying, can we keep it as like a between raw and silver? We had a stage one and a stage two, so stage gated layers.
Okay.
So I think when you are moving the data across the different layers in Fabric, especially like we call it as the medallion layers. So when we term the word medallion layers, we are talking here about your bronze, your silver, and the gold. And this is all about preparing the data for any downstream data activities. Some of the questions that you have to keep in mind when you are moving the data across these layers is how much of data that you are working with. So this is mainly around like the volume of the data that you're dealing with. Of course, everyone is working in the big data era, like as Gokula was talking about in the introduction. And so you have to actually cater for like what is the workload or the data load that I'm dealing with in here, and what is the level of transformations that you need to make, because where you have to have a clear understanding of that upfront, because when you move the data between your bronze to silver or silver to gold, like you need to understand what is the transformations that are going to go between these layers, and this needs to be clearly articulated to data engineers, because if they don't know what they are supposed to do from a transformation perspective, then I don't think you will get the good quality data that we're talking about across these layers. So I think, how do you normally do these transformations? Like, how do we document that? So normally I have seen a lot of customers and especially the data engineers asking for like a source to target mapping documents, which includes transformations.
Um, when it comes to transformations, like I said, we need to be very clear about what kind of transformations that you want to do
Yeah,
on silver and what you want to do on gold,
that's right.
right? And having a documentation for what kind of transformation is very important,
Yeah,
especially with the mappings and all of that. So there would be a phase that we go through before to put down this documentation to say, okay, if whatever that you have on bronze, this is how it's going to get translated into silver, right?
that's right.
And you will not go beyond this certain set of rules because we want to keep that for gold, because those set of rules are for actually transforming the data into an analytical format. But like you said, Anu, it's very important that we need to have um, the mappings and the transformation rules all um, documented so that you can um, automate it as much as possible when you build your uh, transformation code.
That's right. And especially one good point you raised, Gokula, is around you need to be careful around what transformations you do between these layers, right? So you need to be clear around providing that mapping and transformation rules to say when you're moving between raw to silver and which is bronze to silver and silver to gold. So keep in mind like what is the level of complexity. Some transformations I have seen like it is as simple as like removing the nulls, validating whether the data that is arriving it's in their reference data store and so on. But there are a lot of other things like, as you know, the quality of the data can be really poor in some organizations where we have to go for really complex transformations with some specific business rules that we need to cater for. So yeah, having that mapping documents clearly articulating like what transformations going to be done across each of those layers is going to be paramount. And the other thing is around the frequency, right? So how often we are going to move the data between these layers. So how about like the frequency, Kokula? Because most of my frequency has been like when the new data arrives. So we do a one-off, and then like it's a regular incremental loads basically. So some cases like we used to do once a day, but more often given like we are dealing with real time data and things, the frequency is much higher than instead of doing just a day.
Yes, I think compared to 4 to 5 years ago,
Yeah.
the needs of organizations have changed, and we regularly see the need for more real-time uh, ingests and transformations of data. So again, I think depending on how often the organization wants to see the data transformed and available to them, we'll need to tweak how you transform the data and how often you have to transform the data between the layers.
Yeah, I can give you an example too. Like I was working with an energy sector company, and they used to receive prices every 5 minutes, and they would like to see like these are new prices that are published in the market, in the trading market, and they use these prices from a trading perspective, which is real time trading. So like that is the level of frequency I'm talking here about. So in some scenarios, it may be a half an hour refresh like you incremental loads in some cases, like as I said, like a 5 minute incremental loads because new data is arriving in that frequency, or even much lesser than that depending on how fastly the data is arriving to your organization. So that is something that you have to consider, and you have to plan around how often the data is going to be moved across these layers. And the last but not the least is around the tools. Like, what are the tools that you're going to be comfortable with in order to move the data across these layers? So, I think when we talk about tools, right, this is always the question. Like, there are seasoned data engineers like who would like to write code, and there are some engineers like I have seen who likes to use the graphical user interface tools. So, I have seen both of them. Like, do you have any preference? Like, what tools that you use for moving data across these layers, Gokula?
I mean, 3 4 years ago, if you asked me, I would have said I would like to write code. But now that I've gotten really lazy, I would like use a graphical tool to implement this. But I think as much as you are comfortable with tools, I think we also need to look at which tools would do the job better.
That's right.
Whether uh, it's a graphical tool which would be more performant, or it would be the code-based tool that's going to be more performant. That also
That's
needs to
right.
be taken into consideration.
And that's where the complexity of the transformations comes into picture too, right? So I think tools like Azure Data Factory or they are really good in terms of even handling the complex transformations these days. So there was a vast amount of difference between V1 was released and versus V2 was released. Gokula, if you can recollect it. So I think with the version 2 of Data Factory, like you can do far more transformations now. And also like now these tools are available within Fabric itself for you to do all these transformations. So it doesn't really matter, as Gokula mentioned, like whether you are going down the path of writing code for your transformations or using other tools for the transformation. So you can simply use a notebook to do your transformation to if that's what you're comfortable with. Cool. What are we going to talk about next, Gokula?
So let's extend upon what we just talked. just now, Anu, and I'll just take everyone through how to implement a medallion architecture in Fabric.
Wow. Okay.
So I will just run through this a little bit quick, just to keep just to keep note of the time. But we are extending upon what we just talked about with Anu. Right? So when you implement, now that you have a solid understanding of the medallion architecture, let's explore how to put it into action. So when you first set up the foundation for your lake house in Fabric, you can choose different approaches. Okay, that suits your needs. For example, you can have multiple medallion architectures inside one lake house, like you can see the first picture there.
Yeah.
Or you can use different lake houses for each layer, and sometimes you can even have different lake houses inside different workspaces for each layer. It all depends on the requirements and the needs, even the security considerations that you have to take. Anything you'd like to add there, Anu? Uh, how would you like to implement this? How
And
have you done?
as you said, Gokula, like it again comes with the understanding of the use cases of the customer, right? Because I work with some customers where they are happy with having all the layers within the same lake house. There are certain customers I have dealt with where they are happy to have their raw, like the bronze and the silver in a single lake house, and where a lot of activity is happening, but they want to keep the gold clean, so in a separate lake house of its own, exactly for your reasons where you said, like to give from a security perspective, because a lot of reporting and analytics people, they would prefer to use the gold layer, but then you can restrict the access of who gets access to the bronze as well as the silver. And most people, like if you give that exposure to them saying, oh, we have a silver and a bronze layer, then probably the tendency is, oh, okay, so we want to explore that too. So that's why I think we normally segregate that in that case of at least to keep the goal layer separate if possible.
That's right. Yep. And then once you have your foundation set up, you can design your architecture by creating the layout using the foundation that you have done, and define the layers and how the data will flow through them. And then, so the most straightforward method is what we spoke about previously: bronze for raw, silver for curated data, and gold for the presentation or the analytical layers. But it can vary based on your need, like you spoke about earlier. So what you see here is summary of what happens in each of those layers and what tools can be used in each of these layers. And so let's explore each of these options in the next few slides. Right, so we learned that the bronze layer is used to ingest raw data from various sources. And usually we have our bronze layer matching one-to-one with the source systems. And to bring in data into bronze, we can either use pipelines, data flows, or notebooks. And so pipelines and data flows are the graphical way of
That's
doing
right.
things. And notebooks is where you write your code using PySpark or Python or Scala or anything like that. What's your preferred way of doing it, Anu? I didn't ask earlier.
Yeah, given I'm going to do the demo with using Python, I would say like, yeah, notebook. So we will be, as part of our demo today, like we will be looking at how do we spin up a notebook, and then we just write some Python code, and then how do we move the data across these layers. So I think that is the case, but saying that, like I'm also a fan of the pipelines. And so it just like more around when I feel like, okay, I want to showcase my skills, like saying, okay, I can write it in Python, I go for that. Or in sometimes like the users prefer, like where they clearly articulate whatever you build, and like when you hand it over to us, it should be maintainable, and our people prefer to use graphical user interface. At that time, I'll just go with the client what they prefer. So yeah, so I have a personal preference writing in Python, but also like I will take into account of what the customer wants from their ongoing maintenance perspective.
Right. And then transforming data and loading into Silver. So in the Silver layer, we determine how you will transform and load the data from bronze. Remember, we don't do transformations on, we don't focus on the analytics or on data
Yeah,
modeling. Rather, we'll be focusing on the quality and the consistency of what you're going to put into Silver. Right. One good example for some of our customers, what I've done is come up with the concept of entities where all of their business entities, such as employee, product, sales orders, everything are structured uh, and standardized so that the source data can come in and fill in those standard formats that we have defined as employee or product and so forth. Right? So it's all about having quality, consistent, and standardized data rather than data modeling on silver. Right? So to transform data from bronze into silver, we can use once again, either data flows or notebooks. And like you spoke about earlier, it can be preference or it
that's correct.
can be which tool would do it better.
That's right.
Right? So when you have very complex transformations to do, sometimes notebooks would do it better because you can write more complex algorithms and code that can take a while longer or more complicated doing it through data flows.
That's right.
Now, in the goal layer, before putting in data into it, you will first determine what it will contain and how it will be used. In this layer, you is where you will model your data for reporting. And preferred method of doing that is using the dimensional model, just like we used to do with data warehouse traditionally. Right? So the dimensional model, which is also called the star schema, will structure your data in an aggregated, analytics-friendly format. Now, while you cannot explicitly do this on the lakehouse, you can nicely set up your goal layer using the dimensional model so that you can establish relationships, define measures, and other elements that are essential for effective reporting on top of your goal layer using semantic models. So Anu will be covering that aspect in the next unit using DirectLake. So just to make sure, you won't be able to establish your relationships and create your measures and so forth on the lake house. You just set it up very nicely using your star schema so that you can, on top of it, um, build your goal into a more enhanced um, object or set of objects.
So this is what we call it as like the facts and dimension tables, right? So like if people are familiar with the dimensional modeling, so what Gokula is mentioning about is you can have your facts and dimension tables made available in the goal layer, and then when you take it to the next layer, which is like want to do reporting, we can create a semantic model out of this layer, and then we can use it from a reporting perspective. And of course, we will be looking at that in the demo shortly.
That's right. Mm. And then the goal layer, it does not necessarily have to be set up in just one way. And so there are different ways you can set it up. Right? So though, for example, an enterprise data warehouse styled goal layer where you have all of the facts and confirmed dimensions will be a good idea. You can also have your goal layer separated out. For example, a goal layer for sales, a goal layer for finance, and so forth. Right? And if you have data scientists working on machine learning models, you can even have some pre-processed tables. You take some data from Silver and pre-process it and make that available for a data scientist. And this set of tables need not be in a dimensional model even, right? So there can be lots of different options or different ways in which you can use your goal layer. And one of the uh, better ways of doing that is structuring your enterprise data warehouse on your goal as well.
That's right.
Right? So when you're talking about data warehouses, you can even just have bronze and silver and not have gold on your lake house. You can directly go to a gold layer using your data warehouse. So the data warehouse portion or how you would implement a data warehouse in Fabric was covered in episode 6, the episode before this one, on February 1st, and which is available on YouTube.
So it's basically a choice, right, Gokula? So you can use either the lake house or whether you use a data warehouse for your goal layer.
It is a choice, yes.
Okay,
And sometimes it can be preference, and sometimes it would be based on your requirements. as well.
Cool.
So transforming data into your gold tables, we can again, the choices are either data flows or notebooks. And once you have um, built your goal layer, you can connect to the SQL endpoint or the SQL analytics endpoint that you have on your lakehouse, which is a representation of your lakehouse in the form of a database or a data warehouse, right? And you can write your SQL and model data for
Great.
reporting, or you can connect to it with Power BI and model your data for reporting. Right?
That's
And then
pretty cool, like
downstream,
multiple ways, right? So if you want to do ad
there are
hoc analysis, you can use the SQL, or if you want to do more like interactive reporting stuff, like you can use Power BI.
that's right. And then to enable consumption downstream, you can have workspace or item permissions set up on the individual objects or on the workspace, and you can, like you said, have SQL collection endpoints to connect from. All right, so let's move on to the next piece, Anu, querying and reporting on data in your Fabric Lakehouse.
Yeah,
Over
that's
to you.
right. So once you organize the data in your different layers, right, like the bronze and the silver and the gold, and then once the data is available in gold, it's all about everyone from your business users like wanting to get access to that. So whether it's a data team, whether it's a end user who's working in the business, they can always want to query the data and then they want to report on that data. And that's where we were emphasizing like, okay, so when people are interested about reporting on your data or query on your data, give them access to the goal layer because that is the best layer from where they get access to the data in the required granularity that they are looking for. As I said, whether it's a daily or a hourly or a monthly, so they can get that at the required granularity as well as in an aggregated format. So suppose if they want to, if they are getting the daily data, but then they want to aggregate it, they will be able to do that. So moving on from that, there are many ways like you can query the data in your lakehouse. One such is the using SQL with the help of that SQL endpoint. So we will be looking at that in the demo in detail. So I'll just quickly highlight it here. So you can use SQL to explore as well as the query the data using the goal layer. And moving on from that is also like you get the ability for using the Power BI reports as Gokula was mentioning. So only point here is like the SQL endpoint that is mainly works as a read-only mode. So because like if you are just querying the data, it's mainly available to users to query the data, look at the data that's available in there and so on. If they want to do any transformations or modify the data in the lakehouse, they have to go back into those tools which Gokula was highlighting, like the pipelines or the data flows or the notebooks. So tailoring for your medallion layers for the different needs, it's mainly it is important. So what you're seeing here on a screenshot there is the Power BI interface where we create a semantic model out of the goal layer and pretty much you can use it in Power BI and then you can start building your reports. So the likes of Gokula mentioning about the star schema and how much the star schema is really important for you to build really great reports because the reason why you were highlighting about dimensional model and star schema is mainly around the performance, right? Around when you build these reports.
Yes, Anu, that and the ability to create reports and to analyze the data in a much more intuitive manner.
That's right.
And you don't have to, write all sorts of queries for different types of reports.
Yeah,
It gives you this easy drag and drop experience to that as well.
cool. I think, yeah. So the more I will cover, like when we get into the demo around, once Gokula covers the final part, then we'll jump onto the demo straight away.
Okay, so let's get into considerations for managing your lake house. So there are a couple of considerations that you need to keep in mind when you manage your lake house. This includes security, securing your lake house, and also how to handle CI/CD or continuous integration and continuous delivery. Now, if you were to look at securing your lake house, okay, we need to always make sure that the least privileges are given to the users that they can do their work with. For example, if you're looking at securing your bronze, you need to restrict your bronze layer as much as possible, because the bronze layer is just your raw data that is brought in. Of course, when you are developing this on your development environment, your engineers would have access to this. But once it has been pushed into production, there shouldn't be many people accessing it. Essentially, or ideally, you only need to have some of the services accessing it, and nothing beyond that. And then when it comes to the silver layer, you can decide whether you will allow anyone to build on top of silver to have additional tables that they would want. However, in most of my practices, I'm not sure. I think it's the same with you. Even silver, you would like to keep it standardized so that there's only the minimum number of people doing any changes there.
Yeah,
Correct?
definitely. Because as I told you, like most of my customers, they really, as soon as the silver layer is ready, they want to get in there. But I think what we really provide them is access to gold layer. But it doesn't mean I don't provide access to silver layer, but it is on a case by case basis. If they have a real need of or a use case why they need access to the silver layer, it will be assessed and will be provided. But I think at most I will try and avoid people getting into the silver layer if possible.
That's correct. And then even gold, the access ideally should be read-only access that you give end users and analysts. But there are certain cases where, based on the case, you can allow certain users to create their own gold layers, but again, within certain restrictions or certain standards that you set up for them. Right? And there have been certain scenarios where an additional layer on top of gold is provided for uh, data specialists who are part of the business, where they would not go and update or change anything on the standard gold layer that we have provided them, but we give them another um, workspace or a section where they can do their own work on top of the gold that is uh, available for them, so that the standard data, the standard analytics, all that you've built is not tampered with. Okay, so just to close off this slide, security is a big topic. You need to look at it from a holistic perspective and also on a detailed perspective, and it will change based on the organization's requirements.
And also, it's really important to the main reason for having these layers is also you can provide that extra layer, add that extra layer of security.
That's correct. Yes. And then considerations for continuous integration and continuous delivery. So this is where, see, a lakehouse or any analytic solution is not a one-time implementation. It's always going to evolve, right? So new requirements are going to come in. It's not just that an organization will bring in all of their data and build the entire lakehouse in just one project. So it will be, in most cases, something that is always evolving, right? And
Yeah,
always, so yeah, that's correct, right? I mean,
that's right. And also, like
anything
the
that you
main
like to share?
reason for having those layers is also like you can have different people working on that at the same time.
Yes, that's true. And then when you develop these solutions, you'll want to always improve on that. There'll be feedback always coming from the business, so which means your bronze, silver, and gold is going to get updated on a regular basis. So you need to have certain processes put in so that the automation of updating it makes it easier,
That's right.
right? So when you're designing a CI/CD process for Lakehouse, there are several considerations that you need to put in to ensure that it is a smooth and efficient deployment process. Right? So it will not always be just one set of bronze, silver, and gold. You will have a development environment. You may have a test environment. You would do your development on the dev and then push those changes to silver. So all of that, if it's going to be done manually, it's a lot of painstaking work, right? So you need to put. So it is not just a technical aspect, but also a process aspect that needs to come in to define the rules and standards as to how you're going to take your data, your changes that you have done, and push it to the different environments such as test and then production, right? So there are lots of considerations that you need to uh, take into consideration. Um, that includes data quality checks, version control, automated deployments, monitoring of it, and security measures. And it is not something that can be done all in one. So that process itself is evolutionary, where you would maybe first look at how you would do your automated deployments and your version control, and maybe next time you look at how you can monitor all of this, right? So to do this, um, Fabric supports Git integration. Right now, currently it supports Azure DevOps, where you can use Azure DevOps for certain aspects of your CI/CD. And as improvements come into Fabric, we can expect it to have more
Git
integration with
integration.
CI/CD processes. All right. So if you take a look at the QR code on the screen, that would take you to information about how you can use Git integration on Fabric.
Great. I think
All
these
right.
are
So yeah.
important practices, right? Like the CI/CD, I would definitely recommend that you have to do it because otherwise it will be a pain, as Gokula mentioned, to move implement these things. Like once you are implemented in Dev, how do you promote it to stage and how do you promote it to the UAT and production in a consistent fashion?
Yes, that's right. All right. So with that, Anu, I'll let you take over the exercises.
Great. So shall we jump onto Fabric and see like how do we implement a medallion architecture in the Fabric Lakehouse then? Great. So here I have got my Fabric homepage. So I'm not going to talk more about this because you have been watching all these sessions. This is basically the Fabric interface, what you are seeing here. And I have got an ability to create more workspaces. So what I have got is my current workspace in here. So what I'll be going and doing is to create a new workspace. So we are going to talk about medallion architecture. So what I'll do is I'll do a medallion. So this is going to validate your name. So I'm going to give a medallion lab demo as my workspace. So all the activities in terms of moving the data across the different layers, I would like to do this in this particular workspace. So here it is going to quickly create the workspace for me. And I'm using the trial tenant. So if you are thinking about like I have to go after this session and practice it, and Gokula, you pointed a URL where people can go and do their exercises, right? At the beginning. Of course, we will highlight that towards the end too. You'll be able
Yep.
to go ahead and try and do that in here. So the first and foremost here I will say is we talked about semantic model. So the way how you can create a data model on your tables that you have in the goal layer, but you have to enable that functionality by going into your workspace settings. And what you can do is this particular functionality under Power BI. So you can allow to edit the data models in Power BI service. So here you can, once the goal layer is ready, you can go ahead and apply things. So sometimes because this is in preview, right? So once you make this change, make sure you do a refresh so that the changes are getting into the particular workspace. Just until they, because sometimes like you have to do this extra thing, especially when things are in preview, but they will fix those things when it comes in GA. Okay, so now we are going to look at how do we get the data into our bronze layer. So here we talked about a bronze layer is all about how do we get the raw data in there. So to do that, first I want to go ahead and I want to create a lake house. So here I want to create a lake house in called sales. So here I'm going to deal with sales data. So let me go ahead and create the lake house. And what I have got is I have got some files which I want to upload. So these are some sales data I have got for like 2019, 2020, and 2021. So all these files are available for me and I can go ahead and load them. So this is, think about this as the data that you normally get it from your customers and you want to go ahead and get this data available in there. So cool. So now we have in the next step, my stuff is all available in here. So here under the files, I'm going to go ahead and create a new subfolder. So because I want to have different layers, right? So I have got bronze, and go ahead and create my bronze folder. So once the bronze folder is there, now I'm going to upload my files in here. So here under upload files, you have the ability to upload just one file or multiple files. In my location, what I have got is a set of multiple files. So I'm going to go ahead and click on here. So quickly, I'll just get my folder, and I have got my files in here. So these are my order files. As you can see, I'm going to choose all the three, open it up here. And if you already have these files available, you can click on override if the files already exist, which means your new files will be overriding the old ones. Or otherwise, you can just go ahead and upload the files. So once the files are uploaded, and basically, as you can see, the path is based in the bronze subfolder. And now everything should be done and dusted. And then if I just hit on refresh here, so you should be able to just to get to see the files. So here the three files that we got uploaded are available. So now moving on from here is around getting into the next layer, which is transforming the data and load it into my silver layer basically. So here to do that, I'm going to just do create a notebook, because as I said, Gokula, like here, my demo is going to be based on notebook rather than some of the other graphical user interfaces. So here I'll just go ahead and create a new notebook. So this is actually creating a new notebook for me where I can write some of my notebook commands. So first and foremost, I'll do is change the title for my notebook, which you can go and do it here. So I'm going to call it as transform data for silver. So this is basically doing it for my silver layer. So I'll get rid of this for now. So this is an empty notebook, as you can see. So following this, the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to use PySpark, and also like I'm going to get rid of this comments, and we'll start writing some code. So I'm going to save the time, I'm going to just paste the code here. So but I'll walk through what this code is actually trying to do. So here we are going to just take the data that is already available in the files, and we are going to load that into this particular silver table. So here we have defined the schema, and I think in my earlier session, which we covered, like we can do schema based or schema less, because some CSV files will have a schema, some CSV files will not have a schema. So depending on that, you can specifically define the schema for the table, and then you can just load the data from here. So for display purposes, we are showing the first 10 rows in the data frame for us to view. So let me run this, because this is the first time I'm invoking the session. So now the session is started. It is going to take a bit of a warm up time. And so while that warm up is happening, what I'm going to do is like yeah, it's already warmed up, which is good. So I'll also create the next part. So the next part is like once you run this, you can get to see like how you get the data listed in here. So the output will be like you have got all the sales related data that we loaded in the bronze folder, now loaded into a data frame, and it is displaying the first few rows in here. So cool. Next step is transforming, right? So the transforming, what we will do is, if you want to write additional commands in terms of transforming the data, you can add it here. I love my notebooks, and so because it's quite easy for me to put things in here. So here I have got some transformation code. So I'm adding some additional columns in here to my data, and also saying, okay, these are some transformation rules where I'm saying just set it as flagged or not based on the financial year of interest. And also like I want to update the customer column name to unknown if it is like empty or null. So these are some of the transformations, just an example to show here. But basically, like you can just do these things as you are working with the data frames inside the notebook. So now run this, and this is going to complete my transformation. As you can see, it is all done and dusted. And what you can do is at any particular stage in the notebook, you can print the data frame. So here, I'm not printing the data frame everywhere, but here I'm just showing that transformation is getting done. The next step is adding the schema, and I'm going to create a silver table for my data. So here, let me go ahead and add this piece of code. So here, this is going to define the schema for my sales underscore silver table. And when I run this, I should be able to see the silver table created under my tables area. So here you can see now it is clearly empty. So let us run this piece of code. And now post running this, we should be able to see the silver table created. So it is still running. And once it completes its run, we should be able to go ahead and refresh the pan here. And then we should be able to see how the silver table is getting created. So this is Gokula, like we saw the layers, right? So the raw data sitting in the bronze layer, and then we saw the silver layer getting created as part of the transformation. So now you can
That's
see
correct.
it
Yeah.
got created. So I can go ahead and refresh this. So you can see here now the sales underscore silver table is available. So sometimes like if it is not showing through, just keep on hitting that refresh, because sometimes browsers take a little bit of time. So if you hit on refresh multiple times, eventually you will get to see that. So then what we are going to do is what we do is like an upsert operation. So, for instance, like the first time you will load all the data, but subsequently, when you get incremental loads, right? Sometimes you get the same data again, or sometimes you get the new data. So, if it is an existing data, you may need to go and update it, or if it is a new data, you may go ahead and create those new rows. So, just I'm going to showcase like you can write that capability also in your notebook. So, go ahead and provide the upsert operation. So here we can use the table, which is the sales underscore silver, and you can pretty much do the update operation based on like your merge command. So how you know the merge command, here you can do the same thing with your tables, like you merge the data if it is already there, again, depending on the use cases. Because some people, if they want to maintain versions, they also do that, but still they update it so that they can just say that is of version 1, and then the next one is subsequently the higher version than that. So now we will run this. So now this is going to have everything done with the silver data. So what we have proved is in the silver table, we were able to create the things, and you will be able to like update and do things as you want in the silver in layer itself. Cool. So now, given now we have got everything in here, you will be able to access the silver data. So how do I go about looking at it? One of the things that you can do is you can go back to your uh, workspace. So here I have my medallion lab demo workspace, and here I can see my SQL analytics endpoint. So I think Gokula, you mentioned about the endpoint where you can use that to query, and also we mentioned that saying this is mainly read only, right? So here you can just go ahead and open it, and then you can start writing your queries. So here the thing is going to open, and now I will be able to, by default, like it is going to open the table. But if you want to write a new query, you can click on here, and you can go ahead and write a command, which is basically to just select the table from your sales underscore silver table, and you can even run them, and you will be able to see the output straight away. So here you can see how you can do ad hoc queries like this, and probably like if you want to create another query, or just change how you want to do it. So maybe I'll write another query, and here this time I'm going to select the top 10 customers based on their group by their customer name, and also based on their quantity. So the higher the quantity, then they will be ranked higher. So now if I run this, I'll be able to get my top customers here. So pretty cool. Like with the SQL endpoint, you will be able to query your data without any hassle. So we have the bronze layer. I showcased like how you can do the transformations and then you can populate the silver layer. We also looked at how do we use the SQL endpoint, and you can query the data with the help of your normal SQL queries that you write. And the next part is like a transformation to gold layer. So what I'm going to do is I'll go back into my uh, workspace here. And what I can do is like I will get back into uh, say for like quite a few things I can do. I can go back and create a new notebook. So this time, when I create the new notebook, I want to make sure like I want to attach my a lakehouse which is already in there. So here, like I can go back and say I want to use my existing lakehouse, which is the sales lakehouse. Add that. So now this is going to bring in my stuff in terms of the tables and the files I was dealing with. So you can see all the ones which I previously loaded in here available. So you can do refresh because sometimes like you have to do refresh sometimes to see that. Okay, I'm going to again change the name. So here I'm going to change it to transform data to for gold. So this is going to transform, this notebook is used to do the transformation. So all set. Now we'll write some more Python code to do that, right? Okay, so the first thing what we are going to do is to load all the data from the silver table into a data frame, because anything that we do, we always do that in the data frame. So let us run that. And again, this is going to take a little bit of time, and I think my clusters are already warmed up a bit. So we'll see how quickly this is running, and that then we will look at the next command. But nothing stops us. I'm going to create the next command in the meantime. Oh, it was pretty cool than what I was doing in my practice runs. So the session started pretty quickly. So I was planning for the worst in case if my demo god wasn't so good with me, how do I handle this? But it was pretty good today. Okay, so here I'm going to add my next part of the thing, and here I'm going to do the creating the dimension table. So here I have got a dim date which is underscore gold. So this is creating my date dimension table. I'm going to create a few more dimension tables, but as I said, at any point in time you can always do a display of your data frame to see what is the output that you are getting. Conscious of the time, I'm going to run this and also subsequently go ahead and create the other dimension tables I need. So, so I'll go ahead and print this. So this is now populating the content and going to show me the first 10 rows in my dim date gold data frame. So this is at least a showcase to you, like we are populating the right tables in here. And now moving on from that, I'm going to just see like update the date dimension as the new data comes in, because the goal layer also we need to be careful around as we get new data coming through. We need to keep it adding. So we'll apply the same principle what we did in silver. So if you want to do updates, you can do updates, or if you want to do inserts, you can go ahead and do the inserts. So run this again. This is now going to apply any changes that we have got. So this is just to showcase exactly what I was talking about. Like if you want to make updates, you will be able to do that. Okay. So now we have done a lot with the date dimension. Moving on, I'm going to create a customer dimension table for my goal layer. Go ahead and hit this. This is going to create my customer dimension tables. And then moving on from that, like if I want to drop any duplicate customer from my silver table as part of that process, I can go ahead and do that too. So here is a piece of code where I can just drop any duplicates and also like get that data. So the cool thing is like as I was mentioning, across the different layers, you will be doing different levels of transformations to get the data in there. So here we are just doing the transformation, and we create any duplicate customers, we drop them, and then we create the proper gold layer for my customer. So this is the dimension table that I'll be creating next. So all the duplicate rows are identified and then it is filtered. So once it completes, this is going to show me my data frame with a list of data. So as you can see, my customer information is coming post the duplication removal. And now we can go ahead and build the stuff. So now we can join everything with my goal customer in my goal layer. And then we can just showcase the top 10 customers from the goal layer itself. So similarly, customer data as the new data arrives, how do you go about doing that? Same principle, like it's not just for one particular table. You will be doing this across the board for all the tables. Like when the new data arrives, it's not going to be doing it one day for this. The next two commands, I'm going to run it really fast because I'm going to repeat this again for the product table. And as you know, same thing. First thing is like get that schema for my product table and then create the data frame where I'm going to populate the product table from the silver layer. So this is creating the schema. This is making sure I populate the data from my silver table. Great. And showcasing it. And finally, building it for my gold table for my product. So this is the dimension table that I need for my product. I'll build the gold table. So as you can see here, I'm showcasing the top 10 as I move along in this progress of moving through one command after another. So this is a good way to keep track of how things are going with your transformations. Last but not the least is I can do the same merge we talked about across all the other dimensions and then to here. So we have got the product dimension, we have got the customer dimension, we have got the date dimension. So what are we missing, Gokula? Is it a fact table?
Yes, it is.
Great. So let us look at the fact table then. So I'm going to write a piece of code now to create my fact table first of all, because we have to have the fact table so that we can get our reports and things done through that. So get the schema of the fact table done. And now I'm going to just create a new data frame which combines all my table to populate my fact table. So basically, like this is what is going to be in terms of populating my fact table, which is in the gold layer. And one more thing, finally, I need to do after populating the fact table, as you can see, it's getting populated is to cater for delta loads, right? So if I have any incremental loads coming through, so I need the ability where I can do the merge even for my fact table, and you will be able to see that. So here you can see mostly it is the insert. I'm not doing much in the update because normally fact is like you keep on incrementing that rather than trying to update. So I have a lot of discussions with my customers, like when they come and say like, oh, Anupama, we need to update the fact table. I said, do you know like what it takes to update the fact table, because performance wise that is not advisable. So just keep that in mind. If someone comes and talks to you about updating fact tables, you need to understand why they are asking you to do. So now everything is done and dusted. So now I have got all my the tables that I require. So probably we may refresh this and see. So the things around all the like the gold tables are all available in here. So I had the silver table as well as the gold table. One last thing I wanted to showcase before we close off this demo. We talked about the semantic data model, right? So what I want to do is like, I want to go into my sales lake house here. So this is my sales lake house. And in my sales lake house, like what I can do is I can go ahead and create a new semantic model. So straightforward Power BI semantic model, you can go ahead and doing it here. So you can go ahead and provide a name for this semantic model. So maybe call it as sales gold. And you can pick and choose the tables that you require. So here, I don't want my things. I'll just use my dim date. Sorry, this interface is because I have zoomed it a bit higher level. So normally, like when you zoom it a bit lower level, you will be able to articulate quickly select these things. So, but don't worry, like yeah, I have confirmed all this. So now this is going to create my semantic model. And so now what it will happen is like you will get the semantic model available from there. You can start building your reports basically. So this is going to open up my semantic model within the Power BI interface. And as you can see, everything is the tables are brought in here. My fact table, my dimension table, so let me go back and bring this in here. So as you can see, my all the dimension tables and my fact tables are here. So now as usual, you can go here, start building your relationships and get your semantic model completed. So
And you don't even have to use your Power BI desktop.
that's right. Everything through Fabric itself. And so this is the semantic model like we were explaining. So straight away, once you got the goal layer, as Gokula was mentioning, you don't need to have all the relationships in there. You build the semantic model and you can start building your relationships from here. So hope I think we have took you through an end-to-end implementation of the medallion architecture within the Microsoft Fabric Lakehouse. Pretty straightforward. All the steps I walked you through, when you go back and practice it with the Microsoft Learn exercise, you will be able to recreate and go through that again. So, what's next, Gokula? Like we have seen the demo.
Yeah, that was pretty great, Anu. Pretty impressive. All what you can do with within Fabric itself. So let's get into the knowledge check.
Nice.
So in the knowledge check, we have just three questions, just to see how well we've done in explaining these concepts to you. All right. So let me go to question number one, and I will wait for 10 seconds before I reveal the answer. So the first question, which of the following sets of layers are typically associated with the medallion architecture for data management? Um, A is raw, polished, refined. Um, bronze, silver, gold. C is initial, intermediate, and final. So yeah, if you can just take the vote, you can vote on the using the QR code or the link that's on your screen right now, and I will have got 3 votes, 4 votes, 5 votes. I'm going to count down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I am going to reveal the answer. The answer for this is
B.
bronze, silver,
Right.
gold.
So I think, yeah, exactly what we highlighted during the session, like bronze, silver, and gold layers.
Right? And I think everyone got this answer correct. So moving on to question number two. Right. So which tool is best suited for data transformation in Fabric when dealing with large-scale data that will continue to grow? So is it data flows Gen 2, pipelines, or notebooks?
Before
We did
even you
touch
complete
upon this.
options, like the
Yep.
vote are coming through.
Oh yeah, they are.
That's right. And I'm
This
impressed.
time we have a good percentage. I'm going to count down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we close the vote. And this is the answer. Notebooks.
And majority of
Notebooks.
them got it right.
Yes, we have a 87% pass rate.
So
And
the
then moving
important
on to
point
the,
here is the large scale data, right? So when you're dealing with large scale data that is going to grow continuously, use notebooks.
that's correct. And then let's move to the last question. What is the benefit of storing different layers of your lakehouse in separate workspaces? A, it can enhance security, manage capacity use, and optimize cost effectiveness. B, it makes it easier to share data with colleagues. C, there's no benefit of storing different layers of your lakehouse in separate workspaces. So
Oh,
let's
the
get
votes are coming
started.
through. Yeah.
Yep, they are. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's close the vote. And this is the answer. And we've got majority of the answers
That's right.
correct. We have 87, 88% uh, pass rate.
Excellent.
All right. So So it looks like we've done quite a pretty job, Anu.
Yeah, I think majority of the votes that we got was the correct answers. And thanks everyone for staying attentive in our session.
All right, so let's quickly summarize what we've learned. So we've learned to describe the principles of using the medallion architecture in data management, how to apply the medallion architecture framework within the Microsoft Fabric environment, how to analyze data stored in lakehouse using DirectLake,
That's right.
and describe some best practices for ensuring security and governance of data stored in the medallion architecture. Anu did go through the exercise to show you an end-to-end implementation using Fabric within Fabric itself.
That's right.
All right. So, Anu would like to take our viewers to the next set of slides.
Yes. So what I wanted to just outline here is like whatever we went through with you today, like you can go back and practice it in your leisure using this link. So if you want to just learn doing this exercise again or go and read through a little bit more about what we covered, you can always do that from this Learn Live URL. And next is don't miss the next topic that is coming through tomorrow, which is ingesting data with Spark and Microsoft Fabric notebooks. So in this Fabric Learn series, like there is a lot of sessions way there, and I think there is a couple more before we wrap up the series, especially for the wave one. So don't miss it. And of course, our MVP colleagues will be doing the presentation. And there you can see February 7, ingest data with Spark. And that's what you will get to see that. And you have one more on February 8. And another thing is if you want to practice Fabric, you can always use the trial version. So the demonstration even I did today, you can use the trial version to do that without any issues. So make sure use the trial version and practice it. And I think thanks for attending our session. And
Yep, and Anu, I think we have a couple of questions for us, and we can answer them while we close up. So there's a question on Fabric Warehouse stores data in one lake. Is that data stored on delta tables as in the case with Lakehouse?
that's right. It is like pretty much it
So,
is in one lake, and because as we said, it is like the OneDrive for data, and we built the lake houses over that.
yep. So the data is stored as delta tables under the hood. Yes. And does this medallion architecture is to replace any other lifecycle management tools, say for example DevOps, GitHub, or will this augment them?
No, I think
Well,
medallion architecture, yeah, it's not a replacement for that because Git and DevOps are more around your source control and how do you do the CI/CD stuff. But this is totally how you structure the data across the different layers. As we said, how do I keep the raw data? So this is more data, not your code. And that is more how do you maintain your code and put that through to different environments. But this is how do you manage the data across the different layers here. That's what medallion architecture really talks about.
right, so Medallion is to have like a pipeline where you move the data through the different layers,
That's right.
whereas
Yeah, the Azure DevOps or the Git is basically to do your source related stuff. So the last one I can see here is Git integration in Azure DevOps supported for all contents in Fabric now. So I think what you have got here is like you will be able to do that in Azure DevOps. I think as Gokula was mentioning, the Git integration is coming through. So watch that space and then you will get to know like when you will be getting all the information as part of Git integration. So with that note, I think we are almost close to the end of the today's session. And I want to thank everyone for participating in this particular session along with my MVP colleague Gokula. So we are happy that we were able to just walk you through around how to implement medallion architecture with Microsoft Fabric. Great job, Gokula, and thanks for sharing the stage with me to present this topic. Cool. I think it's a thanks from Gokula too. So thanks for everyone for joining us today. And yeah, don't forget tomorrow's session, and meet you all later at some point. Or if you have any questions, our LinkedIn profiles are with you. You can always reach out to us, and we are happy to provide answers. Thank you. Bye.